As has been widely reported, the traditional revenue models for media organisations and broadcasting are continually challenged. What was once the bread and butter of our kind of industry with linear advertising revenue is continuing to be diminished. And the GBX Council has been having working group sessions over the last few months to really dig into this and understand what is the reality of this for media today, and where does the industry need to go next. So without further ado then, we want to introduce up a few panellists to talk on this topic. GBX Council members Stu Bailey from Paramount, Richard Felix from Globo, and Dilip Venkataman from Tech Mahindra. So please welcome them to the stage.
I'm the head of media solutions in Globo's organization. I think that is important to give a little bit of context of Brazil. In Brazil, free-to-air television has a lot of power. We have more than 70 million households that watch free-to-air television. We cover more than 90% of the Brazilian territory. Yeah. And free-to-air television has a lot of great content that we produce for entertainment, news, and sports. Also, give a little bit more context, pay TV in 2014, Brazil almost reached 20 million subscribers, but now, 10 years after, we have less than half of that, probably more or less 90 million. We also are into the streaming business. We have our own platform that is called Global Play. That is the second biggest platform in Brazil. We just lose for Netflix. We have around 30 million users. And we have our own CDN that distributes more than 20 terabits per second of content of the digital platforms in Brazil. We also have our own identification, that is Global ID. We have more than 140 million Global IDs that help us to have a lot of first-party data of our customers. Yeah, and I think that the biggest challenge for us right now is how is the business model is going to evolve. And we believe a lot on what's going to be our next generation of television, where we can tie the power of the free-to-air television with the evolution of the internet. Just to imagine, today in Brazil, all of these 70 million householders, almost 30 million already have an internet connection in their homes. So for us, with this integration, we can have just one app, yeah, that can give a lot of great experience, because we have a lot of good content, but also great personalization of the content that will interact more the consumer. And also, we will have the capability to target this consumer that will help us to engage more the advertisers. And these advertisers are very important for us, because with that, we will be able to regain the small and the medium business advertisers that shifted to the digital side. Yeah, and then with this, I think that we will be able to have new revenues that are very important to the continuance of our business.
That's cool. Stu?
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me here today. Can everyone hear me okay? Is that fine? Good. Okay, so I work for Paramount. I'm the Senior Vice President of Media Engineering and Global Distribution. You'll probably know a whole swath of our brands, from CBS to Nickelodeon to MTV to Paramount Plus to Pluto, etc. And really where we're at is we kind of play in all spaces. So, you know, for the traditional business, we play in the broadcast space with CBS. We play in the cable space with obviously the Nickelodeons and MTVs of the world. But then we're also heavily involved in D2C as well. You know, we have a very scaled streaming platform with Paramount Plus, which is our subscription platform, where we're about 69 million subscribers now. We also have a very large AVOD platform as well, which is technically the most distributed FAST service in the world under Pluto, which is now $1 billion business for us. And then we've also got theatrical and other areas of business as well. So really we're playing in all spaces, pay, free, etc. So I think that's going to be an interesting angle for this conversation, is the breadth of what Paramount's got and where those touch points are, whether it be a risk or opportunity.
Yep, cool. And Dilip?
Check. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dilip Venkatraman. I'm with Tech Mahindra. First, I want to compliment the organizers, Lois and team, for setting this up, GVX. It's good to see you all on a Saturday morning. About me, I work for Tech Mahindra. We are one of the larger, system integrators. We do lots of things. But more importantly, I had the media and entertainment business. And I worked extensively in broadcast. I've had the opportunity of leading news networks. I've also had the opportunity of being a startup entrepreneur and blazingly burning it down to the ground. I can pass it off on COVID, but I've seen that, done that. But that startup was on, newer ways of streaming content and how to create non-linearity in a linear stream and stuff like that. In that process, the US PTO obviously lowered their standards and accommodated whatever I submitted, and I have 7 patents which they gave. So I'm trying to be here in this particular panel as the person who's going to be politically incorrect and challenge a few beliefs and advise all of us, because this industry is kind of given us our livelihood, to say, hey, let us not focus too much on getting the interiors right of our cabins in a cruise line if the cruise line is sinking. So you're going to hear that theme from me, and that's purely out of no disrespect, but just to kind of give a larger sense of perspective and proportion to what is going on in the industry. And it's not only about how we operate ourselves, it's about how we are an integral part of a larger value chain. And if the value chain fails, we will be under threat. So hence, we need to get the whole value chain right. I'll pause. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. So, Stu, in the kind of calls we had in the run-up to this, you mentioned that for Paramount, linear advertising remains still the core of the funding path. But obviously, you're engaging with new directions with the subscription platforms and the services and these kind of things. Can you tell us a little bit about that kind of dynamic?
Yeah, I don't think we can say it's the core. It's certainly a key part of our business, but obviously we do benefit a lot from affiliate subscription fees, from consumer products, real-world experiences, etc. But yes, certainly it's a very large makeup of our business. So with regards to the decline in revenue, I think what we're seeing is we've just got to take a different angle now. So the angles we're taking is, first and foremost, basically being creative. So what do I mean by being creative? This is effectively whereby if we take like the Super Bowl as a good example, which was this year, obviously CBS broadcast it this year, was the biggest televised broadcast event in the history of the world, which is great. Sort of shows that revenue is still resonating for us and everyone else. But the important point is if you look at the advertising there, it was very programmatic. Pretty much every advert and every break was custom made. So obviously had a higher engagement, a higher sentiment rating. So really, I think that's why we got very creative on how do you address an audience with something that's more entertaining than just a generic commercial. So I think that's point one. And then I think the other point as well is if you also look at the Super Bowl there as that example on creativity, you'll see whereby obviously we had the traditional game on CBS and then we had the non-traditional game on Nickelodeon where we were sliming players and we had SpongeBob and Patrick narrating it. And that was a great success and really gave us a big uptick in a much larger audience and a younger demographic, which the NFL were very pleased about. So I think that's just a good idea of where you've got to be creative. I think the obvious second one is personalization. We are seeing DMAs shrinking. We've gone from national to DMAs to unique households. Personalization will probably end up being at sentiment and contextual based as well. So we're just seeing that hyperlocalization really kicking in now. I think the third area is for us, and we're quite big on this, is basically 360 advertising. So now we're not just doing simple buy deals, etc. We are looking at everything from the procurement of obviously ad inventory right through to bespoke creative around that for the partners, but then also coming up with holistic plans for all our platforms theatrical, streaming, real world, cable, broadcast, you name it. So that's where we're also looking at how can we create a more compelling deal that's not just around, kind of what was your average time spent in your ratings on the traditional cable network. We're going a lot more broader on that now across our entire range of assets, which is where our scale really helps. And then just the final piece I've just mentioned is probably unique offerings as well. So we have a part of the business called IQ, which is a $3 billion business now. That's where we really partner with the customers on unique, tailored media campaigns across all platforms with the creative, but very much tied into the programming as well, even with product placement. So again, a lean back to that creative, but really just showing how we've just got to do more than what the basic was before.
Sounds good. And I think the personalization or hyperlocalization, or the kind of new services. I mean, we just heard from Kevin from Sky with the kind of ATP and the tennis services, and obviously Pamela doing similar things. That seems to be the kind of growing trend to go off and find more unique or niche services that you wouldn't normally have funded in the past.
Exactly. 100% agree with that. Why would I want to spend my advertising dollars with you versus the next, where we can offer you something more compelling, it's going to resonate more with your customers, and you're just going to get a much bigger engagement with your customers as well. And we can validate that with advanced reporting that we'll talk about later in the session.
Maurizio, from your perspective, are you seeing a similar thing for Globo? Are you also steering down the line of that kind of localization or new services for customers?
Yeah, of course. I think that one important thing that we are evolving a lot is how we can segment and really have a better delivery to the customer. That, of course, that will help us to engage more the advertisers. So we are, of course, that working a lot with dynamic ad insertion over the digital products, but with the free-to-air television in Brazil, we are already able to put the dynamic ad insertion into the free-to-air. And of course, that in the next generation of the television, we are going to scale that. And I think that this, for us, is a very important part of how we want to engage more the customer and advertising. Other thing is that as we produce a lot of content, we have more than 4,000 hours of drama content, 8,000 hours of news, and 12,000 hours of sports per year. We believe also that we should go as much as possible differentiating this kind of content, putting a higher premium content in 4K, for example, giving a differentiation in audio, and this is something that we are working. Of course, that today we can deploy this in over the top, on the global play, that is on the streaming platform. But in the next generation TV, we are working that we can do that segmentation and the personalization also into the free-to-air television. Yeah, and we really believe that as much as we can segment, personalize, we are going to give a better audience. Yeah, and of course that the metrics that we are going to bring to the table to the advertisers will help a lot how we can retain them. And I think that the last point, the fourth point that is very important is today the small and medium business, they are more like digital guys, yeah. And for them, it's very important that we have a very nice, easy to use ad platform. That inside of this platform, they can log in, they can have a very good journey, they can already create their advertising and have, in the end of the day, real results, detailed results that they can measure and they can see the benefit. I think that this is a very important thing that we believe that is going to be a game changing for us also to bring back to television the small and medium business.
That sounds good. Dilip, just coming to you. I mean, what I'm hearing here is we're trying to create, broadcasters creating more diverse kind of offerings, more kind of engaging offerings for their audiences. Are you seeing that as a common trend across the media organizations you're working with from an SI and a consultancy perspective? Is that the key path you think people need to be taking?
Okay, so the good part of being in the services industry is that we are part of the industry and yet we are not part of the industry. So there are most of the activities most of the media companies are doing fall into three buckets. The first one is consumption, which is where personalization plays a key role. Stickiness, whatever you want to call that. The second bucket is optimization. We have heard experts come and speak in the earlier sessions as how from 4 months to 4 minutes and stuff like that in rolling out channels and things like that. That's process optimization. There is a cost optimization going on. But I think the third bucket is monetization. Right? Largely, our industry, wants the fascination about what is being vividly shown on a screen. The good news for us is the TV screen is getting bigger and better, which means there is something working right in the industry. But when it comes to monetization, we are only largely looking at advertising and subscription. So I think one of the advantages of the media industry itself is that there is recency. People or consumers come and visit our customer brands every single day. And that needs to be monetized in a different way. And I am seeing a trend where we are actually implementing a few marketplaces which are curated for the particular set of audiences. Because if you actually see the model, the business model is we have audiences and then we are selling it to advertisers so that they can come and sell their products. What if that becomes a more cohesive and comprehensive process, but it's done in the same place? And hence a marketplace where things are available for particular audience sets are one way of making sure there is a new revenue stream in itself, which is transaction-based or affiliate-based, and it is adding to the advertising and the subscription revenue streams, hence easing the pressure on revenues and bringing in newer kind of audiences. So that is one thing which we should look at. And the other thing is first-party data. See, today, data is, obviously, I don't need to tell you guys, you're all highly aware of it, but first-party data is just not available in linear broadcast. If we were to figure out a way of collecting the first-party data and then extrapolate it with enough data sets which are available, we might have a larger insight of what is going on within the industry and also know what is the audience doing outside of the linear television. And many of the big behemoths like Stewart's company, Paramount and others have that advantage of having the digital data because they have digital platforms. How can both of them, both these data sets get kind of synergized, synthesized so that you can get better leeway of understanding who is watching what and how the personalization then kicks in at a different level so that you're able to monetize this better. And personalization is also important for making sure the kind of content, because in the advertising world, personalization has taken another form. They are at least 2 generations ahead. I think those best practices can be incorporated into the operations of how we serve our content. And eventually, I think we are only going to have a connected TV world, because one filter I want to throw out there for all of you to unpack is whatever we do, whether we are getting better in our process, getting better in our efficiencies, if it is not going to impact the end consumer, then we have to think hard about it. For instance, we are here in this hotel for this event. Do we really care whether this venue was hired or rented out or it's owned by Grass Valley? What we are looking for is the actual value proposition. I think we need to focus on that. And that is where I think a forum like GVX, where all the stakeholders in the value chain come together to protect our industry and grow it. If you ask me, there is an absolute space for something called TV X.0. If we were to go start a new TV business right now, what was earlier the broadcast business, we will do it differently. And I think we can redefine the industry and bring it back into a growth trajectory like any of the other industries. So that is something, but for that we need to do some heavy lifting. We need to get together, collaborate, and come up with a viable proposition right at all the stakeholders level, whether it's the consumer, whether it's the distributor, whether it's equipment manufacturers, whether it's the advertisers, and so on.
Really good insight. I think we'll come back to what that next generation is going to be in a moment. You mentioned data and reporting or around the monetization. I think that's an increasingly important factor. What was once Nielsen in Kantar, and that was kind of generally relied on, is no longer an all-inclusive kind of solution. Stu, you were saying before how Paramount have dug in quite deep in terms of focusing that reporting. Could you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, there's probably two key areas to touch on there. One would be going back to the Paramount Advanced Advertising Platform and the IQ offering that we do, which is where we've now got much better telemetry on effectively how much we're spending on the various aspects of the value chain. So even down to what is your effectiveness of a promo campaign or a marketing campaign, what was the effectiveness of the whole franchise in general or that season. So we're really trying to get to a glass-to-glass understanding of the true costs of how a property or franchise or season or series or marketing campaign would work. So there's been heavy integration from our scheduling systems and MAM systems into our SAP ERP systems. So that's been one big area that we've really had to focus on. That feeds into a second area, which is we've really got to look at then if we're now selling very sophisticated cross-platform campaigns that touch on theatrical, streaming, broadcast, cable, social as well, which is a huge one for us, given we have we do have the number one key social indicators for any media company with some of the hits we get on subscribers and engagement, etc. So it's really how do you pull together a credible reporting that shows how effective something was across the entire estate there, and obviously that's something we've worked on and now cracked. So I think that's the two really big areas for us, is that really knowing your costs and how effective was the money that you spent per dollar.
That's really interesting. And from the Maurizio, from the Globo perspective, what are you seeing beyond advertising? What are you seeing as the kind of next thing that you're chasing? We spoke before about things like shoppable kind of services, that kind of thing. Could you speak about those kind of dynamics?
Yes, I think that with the new business model that we are building, the capability to have free-to-air and the internet together, we can give really a lot of differentiations for the customer. Yeah, we believe a lot that we can embrace e-commerce in a higher scale. Yeah, of course that we are testing out this already, and to understand how the customer will engage with interactivity will depend a lot of what kind of content. Yeah, I think that shoppable is something that we are working on also, because we believe that with the power of our reach, I think that we are going to be able to deliver a lot of good clicks, and also to see how we can pass through the funnel of buying until really the purchasing. I think that this is another important thing for us. And we are also working a lot, and I think that the guys from Sinclair also is, what about that data casting? I think that this is something that until now we were just media-centric, yeah, and everything that we talk about was media-centric. But why would not use our pipe that has a lot of low latency and a lot of capabilities to deliver also data to the customer and see how we can really, in the end of the day, have some different business outcomes with this data that we can serve also.
That's cool, thank you. And Dilip, from all of this regard, the path used to be very clear in media. It used to be that we're doing this, we go from a technology point of view, it was analog to SDI to IP, whatever it may be. And then from an advertising perspective, that was kind of the standard that we funded our business on, right? What do you see from a consultancy or technology perspective as being the future path? Is it still advertising, or as you say, is it take a fresh perspective on everything and trying to find new, diverse kind of solutions.
So I would like to ask all of you. First, I want a show of hands. How many of you are working on end-to-end vertical format work stream? End-to-end for video. End-to-end. Anybody working on a vertical format at all? End-to-end? I see no hands.
Go on.
Now, please, let's now unpack. There is content. There is distribution mechanisms. There is form factors. There are formats. I think it is in the interest of our industry to also respect the consumer. I think a time was there where we made and they came. And now they are there. We have to get there. I think it is important that we understand the consumer. Otherwise, I mean, there is some jokes. I have lots of cable and satellite company as customers. So the average age, at least for one customer, is 64 plus. So the joke was, I mean, eventually when nature takes its own course, what happens to this business? Right? So I think, and our technology is so cutting edge. It's a question of just looking at it a little differently, making sure it reaches the right people. So if you unpack, content is being consumed. Video consumption has gone up. There are more devices through which you can watch video. We have the technology. We bring in the data. We have to incorporate some of the best practices of data, including maintaining privacy. There are whole new companies which are doing clean data rooms where provenance layers are important and it's become a compliance issue. So all those things need to be addressed holistically, and I definitely see opportunity for our industry to completely go on a growth trajectory, and I would broadly want to provocatively park it as TV X.0. If all of us get together with all the capabilities we have built in technology and the cloud and other things, the new codecs, all those things put together, there is a renaissance waiting to happen, and it's coincidental we are in the Renaissance Hotel. Thank you.
So just in the last few seconds, really, so through the GVX, we'll obviously continue to unpack the kind of the models that were possible and what the direction's going to be. For each of you, just 20, 30 seconds, what is your key focus for this year or maybe next year in terms of protecting and increasing revenue? Is it optimization? Is it a new platform? Maybe we start with you, Maurizio.
Yeah, I think that is an exciting year for us. As I said, we are in a path for the next generation of television. Today we are designing this architecture that is going to rely on the future of the television, the cloud, like you guys discussed in the last panel, because it's very important for us, a cloud software center to give us agility, flexibility, scale, and also use of the AI, in order to be more autonomous. And I think that this is one of the most important parts that we are building today, and we are prototyping a lot of things on air, and already understanding how is the reaction of the customer and how is the reaction of the advertiser in order to next year be very strong on that.
Thanks. And Stu?
Yeah, so probably three key areas. So coming top down from our CEO and president down is certainly very much focused around two angles that touch on my area. It's, let's make streaming profitable, and let's obviously optimize the traditional business maximum that we possibly can. But I do think it also feeds on a third area, which we should probably touch on, which is also just keeping on driving that scale. And again, scale is not just around, kind of our broadcast assets with CBS, where you're kind of doing the Super Bowl and, doing the, most broadcast televised event of all time. It's also the cable channels where we've obviously got enough shelf space to drive demand there. It's on the streaming side where we need to make sure we play in all spaces. So obviously we have Paramount Plus, which has really established itself with its 69 million viewers, and profitability of that will be break even in 2025. That's been declared now. And then you've also got Pluto as well, which is also firing all cylinders. You know, it is the #1 fast platform distributor globally, fact. And then also we're seeing that as $1 billion business now, which is purely ad funded. So I think, yeah, just to sort of succinct what I've just basically said, it's driving, exploiting that scale to make sure that we can make streaming profitable and to make sure we can optimize the efficiency of the cash cow effectively.
Brilliant. And Dilip, final comments?
So the next 1 year is going to be about data, personalization, generative AI. That's a new paradigm. It's going to touch all our lives. It's a real thing. It's not a hype like the metaverse. Generative AI and, of course, AMP. AMP is going to be something which we are really going to focus on, and it's part of my top priority. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So Maurizio, Stu, Dilip, thank you very much for joining us. And a round of applause, please.